So today we're going to be talking about cellular respiration, specifically focusing on the oxidative phosphorylation and the electron transport chain. Just gonna color this in for funsies. So oxidative phosphorylation and the electron transport chain is defined as the generation of ATP within the mitochondria in a reaction sequence that requires coenzymes and consumes O2. This process produces 90% of ATP used by the body. So that's quite a bit. So next we're going to talk about the definition of two different things that are going to be occurring. They are oxidation and reduction. So oxidation is the loss of electrons. So when something loses its electrons, and then the reduction is the gain of electrons. This can be a little bit confusing though. So when these occur, the reduced molecule actually gains energy, unlike what I just said before, and this is at the expense of the oxidized molecule. So this doesn't really get anything, but this is gaining energy. All right, so this is the first step in our process here. This is a coenzyme, and it is going to strip a pair of hydrogen atoms actually away from a substrate. As you can see, the substrate is very sad, but that's what its job is to do. The next thing we're going to talk about is NAD and FAD. So as you remember, these NAD is reduced through reactions of the citric acid cycle, or they're both reduced during the citric acid cycle during different reactions into NADH and FADH2. So then with these two already here, NADH and FADH actually take the two hydrogen atoms that we had originally that were stripped to coenzymes. So here we go. That are embedded in the inner mitochondrial membrane. So this right here is the inner mitochondrial membrane. So the electrons actually carry the energy, and the protons that accompany them are released before the electrons are brought here. So some of the energy is actually taken away before it's even taken through. One way that energy is released, though, is there are various hydrogen ions down here, and as the hydrogen atoms and electrons move through the electron transport chain, they lose energy that allow these down here, which are in the mitochondrial matrix, to go through various like pumps throughout the system, which will move them into what is called the intermembrane space. And then energy is pretty much born. so going back to our main focus here. So the NADH and FADH2 bring the atoms and the hydrogen atoms to different coenzymes, these right here, to go through the path. Now, the path that they take all depends on whether they have been taken by NADH or FADH2. If the path from NADH involves the coenzyme flavomononucleotide, which is also called FMN. FMN, or the path for FADH2 goes directly to coenzyme Q, or ubiquinone. So both of these are bound to the inner mitochondrial membrane. So this whole thing. Next. So you have one going through here, immediately through here, and then you have one going straight up through coenzyme Q from FADH2. So one thing too, coenzyme Q up here releases hydrogen ions and passes the electrons to cytochrome B immediately. So right here, this is cytochrome B. So after that occurs, the electrons are then passed along the electron transport chain some more. And see, they joined up here. They are passed along more through the electron transport chain and progressively losing energy as they go in each of these small steps. So as they go through, they pass through cytochrome B as well as cytochrome C, which is up here. And then they also pass through cytochrome A and A3. Then they finally get to the end where the ATP synthase occurs, which is like the final phase of everything. This is where there is an assembly which is driven by the flow of protons back into the mitochondrial matrix and through the enzyme complex. So, and then essentially this is just basically the end. And an oxygen atom accepts electrons and then combines with hydrogen ions to form water, or H2O. Also, a couple of things to note. Let's see, a couple other things to note are the kinetic energy of the hydrogen ions, of the passing of the hydrogen ions that generates the ATP is a process called chemoosmosis, or chemoosmotic phosphorylation. This is a very important term to know because it's what essentially drives the entire process from step A, part A, all the way to F. So, yes, and another thing to note is also that the pumps that we talked about over here, they move the hydrogen from mitochondrial matrix into the space between the inner and outer mitochondrial membrane, which I set up here is the inner membrane space. This concentration gradient provides energy to convert ADP to ATP. So essentially, the electron transport chain does not necessarily produce ATP directly, but instead it plays the role in producing enough energy to convert the ADP to ATP.